Hello there everyone, it's Carol from the Crafty Emporium and welcome back to listening to me prattling on again. Alright, one of the responses, I have to just say, one of the responses to one of my videos was that she saw me sort of bobbing and weaving underneath the camera and stuff and hadn't realised that I got dark brown curly hair. She kind of imagined me with blonde hair and a bob. It so made me chuckle, that comment. But thank you for that, Madge. Isn't it funny how we perceive people who are on the other side of the camera? One of these days you'll get to see me ugly mug, but not just yet. I'm waiting for my brother to come and do my roots. I'm not videoing myself with grey roots. It's not pleasant. Okay, so where am I? Oh yeah, so I forgot where I was at then. So we're going to have a go at doing the thingy flippy what's it called? Oh, I'm having a slurp of my brew. Okay, waterfall, that's what I was on about. So I mentioned in the previous video about doing a little bit of prep work. Again, if you're using your own papers, you'll need to work out the size of these, and I'll tell you the size that I'm going to cut these to in a moment. But because I'm using this digital kit, I'm going to cut them up. Now, as I mentioned previously, there is a bit of a smudgy line down here as to where the image blends into the background part. Now, I'm actually going to cut mine out to the same width as where the smudgy part is. So I'm just going to chop down the sides for the moment. I'm not doing the top and bottom bit, and you'll see why shortly. So I'm going to do that, cut that long bit off, and then I'm going to do the same on to the side. Yeah, about there. Alright, so I've got a strip like that, and then I'm going to do the same on the next one. I've lost my smudgy line. Where's it gone? There, I think, yeah. Okay, and I'll spin it round and do the same on to the side. Now I'll need to just check that they're all square because I think they're a bit skew-if, but we'll have a look. So those are the images that I'm going to use. Now that smudgy line there, I'm going to trim it off at the bottom, but I'm leaving all of this at the top of each one at the moment. So I'm going to trim it off at the bottom edge. There's one. Bottom edge, Carol, bottom edge. Nearly did the top edge then. Hang on, which is the top? That's the top, that's the bottom. Woo! Nearly got it wrong. That's unheard of, isn't it, me getting it wrong? Well, it just shows I'm human, and it does show that you're allowed to make mistakes. I'm not a perfectionist. Now, I'm just going to stack these on top of each other. Yeah, see, they're not quite the same width, so I just need to trim a bit off that one. Now, if I was being a real professional, I'd measure. Let's measure. Let's be a bit more professional about this, Carol. So the width of these is 3.5 inches wide. All right, so the finished thing is 3.5 inches wide. So I need to make sure that they all measure the same. That one's 3.5. That one's slightly over. So turn it that way, go to 3.5. Hang on, get myself all confused. 3.25, not 3.5. Oh, I haven't had enough tea. 3 1/4, Carol. 3 1/4. Yeah, see, it's not quite square. There we go. One of these days I'll be able to do this stuff right. trim that up. 3 1/4. Only a smidge, but makes a difference. Am I right now? Oh, I still need to take just a smidge more off that one. They'll do. They'll do. Okay, so I've got my 4 images, which will form my I got that one very well, which will form my waterfall. Okay, now I need a flap on the top of each one of them. If I'd cut along that smudgy edge line, I wouldn't have enough card to be able to make a flap. So I'm actually going to fold it on that smudgy edge line, and you'll also notice now I've turned it over that I've actually printed the background paper on the back. Right, so I've now got that flap on the back, and I've got just purely the image on the front. Now it doesn't matter about this bit on the back being like this, because this is what we're going to adhere to the page, but I might just trim them down a bit because they're a touch too wide. Okay, so let's give you some measurements. So these measure 3 1/4 inches wide. The whole surface area of the card. No, let's trim that down first, because then I can tell you. Yeah, about that. The whole surface of the card measures 4 7/8, and then I've done a 1/2 inch flap at the top. Okay, so 3 1/4 inches wide by 4 7/8 long, and a 1/2 inch flap at this top end. And of course you could use your bone folder or the handle of your scissors to just burnish that fold mark down. I just need to trim these. You'll also notice, if you look closely, there's some magnets on my scissors, and I'm keeping them there so I don't lose them, because I want to use my magnets in a bit. Now if I wanted to, I could round the bottom corners of these cards, but I'm going to leave them square. Okay, just burnish it down again. I always forget to bring my bone folder over with me. So I've got like a window seat, which is this bit here, my window's there, which you may have seen on previous videos, and then my main table is over there, which is where all my stuff's at. But I do all my videoing here because of the light. So then I would use my distress ink, and it's black soot that I'm using with me dibby dabby dooby. Dooby 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 doo doo. So I'm just going around quickly to just cover over that white core of card. The other thing as well that I've never really mentioned before either, I don't think, is that especially with black soot, or especially with the darker dyeings, when you're doing this, leave them to one side to just dry a little, because the amount of times that I've done this and then sat them on top of the likes of something like this, and the dye hasn't quite dried, and so it prints onto, and you know when you're like, oh God, can't believe I've just done that. and it's right where it's going to be visible. So always leave these to just dry off a little before you stick them on. Okay, that was another comment, me calling this the Dibby Dabby Doobie. And I said to the lady, I said, I'm at that age where I can't remember words, and so I'll make it all up. If I can't think of the actual word, I'll make it up. So there's our lovely bag that we made earlier, and these are now all going to sit here. Now you have to have a little bit of a play as to the position as to where the first one goes. All right, so I'm going to put just position that first one down there, and then I'm going to open up my flap, and I'm just going to butt the top edge of the flap against the edge of the card here, and that's where that one will then sit. And I'm going to do the same with the next one. I'm going to do the same with the next one. Right, so I've now got a rough idea where this top one is going to go, because I'm going to put that one on first. Make sure that they're all lined up down the sides too. Okay, so I'm going to put it up just a touch higher, because I want to put my circle and my magnet on there. So that is roughly where that first one is going to go. So I'm just going to put a little pencil mark there, so I know it's going to sit there. Alright, so I'm going to put some glue now on this part of the flap, and I'm just going to use my PVA tacky glue, because I want it to be on there and be fairly strong. You watch, this will be blocked up. Yeah, big bottle. So that's going to sit there. Flip it over and just make sure it's central on the page. I'm going to shift it across a bit, so that visually I've got the same amount of paper on each side. Now then, as you can see, when I flip this one up, the paper comes to the decorative part comes to the edge of the card. When I flip this one up, it doesn't. I've got a white edge, but I'm not going to worry about that just now, and you'll see why in a bit. So I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to place a couple of lines of glue on the back. Again, you don't want too much because you don't want it oozing out. And I'm going to fold the flap down and then put this edge up against the bottom edge of that flap, and I'm going to butt it right up next to it. Just fold that first one down and make sure that I'm in line here. Yeah, as near as damn it is to swearing. Okay, and the next one, glue on the flappy bit. I had to be careful because it comes out quite fast out of that bottle. That's why I wanted to use the thin nibbed one, really. And again, I'm going to butt it up. Now then, what we're actually going to do is we're going to cut a strip of patterned paper, whether it's the same as this one or whether it's a different one, and we will end up sticking it on those flaps, alright, so which will then cover that white bit over. Or the other thing that I could do is I could move that up so that it sits on top of the previous flap rather than it being butt up next to. Now I'm going to butt it up next to, because I'm going to cover that white bit over. And again, I'm going to pull these down to make sure that it's in line, because at the moment it's going off a little. So I know that I need to just shift it just a touch to get it to fit. That's better. Yep. And the last one. There we go. So that's the basis of a waterfall. Got that one very square, Carol. That's better. Now then, with a scrap bit of paper, I'm going to cut myself a strip that will sit over the top of that waterfall. I'm going to cut it, just do 1 inch wide, because I can always trim some off if I think that's too fat. And this paper needs to have a little fold over at the bottom, at the top, sorry. So it needs to be long enough that it will cover the whole of the waterfall and go beyond. Alright, I'm going to just quickly ink that up, and it doesn't matter at this point if it's too long, because we can trim the excess off. So I'm just going to ink the top and the sides for now. And then I'm just going to place a little bit of glue on the back of that flap. And I'm going to line it up with the top in the centre. Now what you could do is you could position this flap just slightly underneath this first one. But it's always difficult to get that in the first one in the right place and deal with the flap all at the same time. So I've just butted it up, and in fact if I push it just a little, because the glue's still a little bit wet, that card will sometimes just slip underneath just a little bit. So I'm going to check that it's going down the middle. Put a little bit of pressure on there. Okay, so I want it to go to the bottom of the page. Now you need to leave, when you're doing your waterfall bit, you need to leave this space down here, because that's where the magnet's going to go. Alright, so as you can see, I've got my magnets on my scissors here to show you. So I've got these little tiny ones that are, these are 4 or 5 millimeters, and that's bigger. Have I got centimeters? I have on that ruler. Oh, look how wide that one is. So that one's about a 60-70 centimetre magnet, and you can get them really easily. So if anyone asks me, I would just say go to eBay, go to Amazon, type in magnets, type in 4mm, 5mm, 6mm, and just get some magnets. They're quite cheap. So I'm just going to put a dot of glue, and I'm going to use the glossy accents, because metal adheres well to glossy accents, and I'm just going to bob it on there for now. Alright, move it up just a touch. There we go. So I'm just going to bob that magnet on there. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my circle punch, and out of a scrap bit of paper I'm just going to punch myself a circle. Now it doesn't have to be the same as the background. It can be a decorative bit of paper with the flowers on. So you know that bit of purple that I'd got left over the other day? It could have been a piece of that. And then I'm going to put some glue on there, and I'm going to use the tacky glue. And I'm going to flip these up out of the way. And I'm going to place that circle on top of the magnet. Now you need to massage it just a little bit, because the every time you push down one side, can you see how it's just lifting up a little here? It's just lifting up, and that's because of the depth of the magnet. It's got to take that into account. So you need to push it from all sides, having a slurp of brew. Oh, love a brew. Until eventually the paper will stick around the magnet. Now then, with magnets, if you remember from, was it physics at school? Magnets have a north and a south pole. So if you put two, hang on, let me just think, if you put two north poles together, they will send the magnets in opposite directions. So you want a north and a south together, I think it is. And the way in which you do that, because I've got the paper there now, I can pick up this magnet. If I hadn't got the paper there, the two magnets would stick together. So if I just place the magnet on top from a little bit of a distance, it will automatically find the right way round that it needs to be. Okay, and I'm going to put a tiny little dab of glue, teeny tiny little dab of glue on top of that magnet. Lost my pin. There it is, because I don't want my nozzle clogging up. And then I'm going to put those back down, and then I'm going to put this strip down and lay it on top of the magnet and just press it a little bit. And eventually what will happen is that second magnet will stick to this strip of paper. Now if you lift it up and the magnet is still stuck to the other magnet like that, don't worry, because you've now left a mark here where that magnet needs to go. So if I put a tiny dab of glue on there, take the magnet off from this end by sliding it, bearing in mind that it needs to be that way round so that the magnets attract. Let me just think, so that's that. So I've got to flip it over, because otherwise they'll repel each other. And I'm just going to leave that to set, because if I put that back on now, the same thing's going to happen. It's just going to come off. Once that glue has dried, and I'm happy that when I lift up this paper, the magnet will remain on this strip of paper, I will flip that back over and trim it down so that it comes to the edge of the background paper here. The other thing that I did on the previous one, which I'll show you in a second, is I put a strip of washi tape down the back of this strip so that it went over the top of the magnet, and I placed glue on it first and then put the washi tape over the top, but did it so that it went over the top of the magnet. Because the washi tape is quite thin, if it won't stop the magnet from working down at this end when the two come together. If you put another piece of card on top of the magnet at this end, sometimes if you put too many layers of card in between each of the magnets, it doesn't have the same pull. Alright, so I'm just going to push that to one side, but that is your waterfall now done. Alright, and I will show you the one that I did in the other journal. So here what I did was I put some trim on the bar that went down the centre. I put a circle on the front, and I even attached half a piece of crochet doily from here, just to add a little bit of decoration. And then as you can see on the back of it, that's where I put the washi tape to just cover over the magnet on the back side. And then that then is magnetised in to hold these down and in place. Alright. One other thing that I wanted to just quickly show you was this little booklet here. And I did get myself a piece of black card out, but that's it's not done a walkabout, it's here, look. So all I did with this little booklet here was I just got a scrappy bit of black card and I just folded the top edge over just randomly, didn't measure it, just randomly folded it over, and then I cut some of the spare decorative paper out and just stuck it on the front, and I then punched a couple of holes in it, cut out some strips of writing paper that I'd got, put the paper underneath and just drew round the holes, and then pulled the paper out and punched it, because I've got the drawn circles now to position it so that when I put the paper back in it was then lined up. I then attached it with a piece of ribbon on the back. Now I did contemplate attaching it all the way through the backboard as well, that's why I've got the holes here, but I decided against it and decided to just add the ribbon through the paper and through onto the card. And then, as I say, as you can see, I put a piece of the decorative paper on the back side here. You could put some on the back here as well if you wanted to. Now, I did do a little series called the 5 Things Challenge, and if I remember rightly, I did the little notebooks in there, so there is better explanation of how to do these little notebooks if you want a better tutorial on those. And then this here was just one of the bookmarks from my kit, which I then attached onto a piece of black card, punched a hole, and then added a bit of fluff at the top, so those can slot in there. So tomorrow I'm going to show you a couple of other little bits and pieces, and then we're done basically. I'm going to cover what I did here on the back with the seam binding as well, but otherwise we're then done. Okay, I'm off to go and finish my brew, put my feet up for half an hour, not, and I'll see you all again tomorrow. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you then. Bye.